This is Too Many Lawyers. I'm Royal Oakes. Connor is on special assignment this week, but we have a very special guest. And when I say we, I mean the royal we. So that worked out well, didn't it? It's Steve Mittleman. Steve, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm very thrilled to be here with you. I've only been watching you for 40 years, uh, but
Well,
but oddly,
I was the Doogie Howser of legal analysts. I
I know. But
started
I
when I was
watched.
6.
Unfortunately, I didn't watch you on TV. That's the thing. I was like a pervy kind of thing. I watched you for 40 years.
Well, I have a face for radio. People have told me that for a long time.
Yeah, that was
So,
one of my first jokes, by the way. I had the looks for announcing and the voice for announcing and the looks for radio.
I like
Very.
that. I like
That was
that.
my major in school for a little while. Was radio. Yeah.
So people may know you from your longtime career as a stand-up comic. You've been on everything, Johnny Carson, David Letterman, etc. But nowadays you have sort of a new career, health guru. And here's the book. There is no wagon. We have dueling books here.
I know.
My cover is coming
Yeah,
off better than your cover, I think.
I know. I was telling you, you're in great lighting.
You
You're in
know,
great lighting.
there's very weird phenomenon, Steve. My book, when I look on my screen, it's backwards. You know how sometimes the video comes out backwards?
Yeah.
Yours was not backwards. I have no explanation for that. We're going to talk about
Really?
Steve's book, There Is No
Yeah.
Wagon. It's all
There
about
is
him.
no wagon.
There
What does
is
that
no wagon.
mean?
Well, we're going to get to that. But first, I have to ask you look, I mean, you've been on Johnny Carson, David Letterman, etc. Here is the deal. You have to tell me: were you more nervous your first time on Carson, or going into this podcast?
Much more in this podcast. Much
Oh,
more.
thank you. I was hoping I would hear something like that.
I've watched everything you've done, like I said, and actually, if you want to know the truth, I started watching Carson when I was like, I don't know, 7 years old, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Right.
So my parents did not know that I was watching because I'd be in my bedroom and I could barely see the zenith, and you could see like it cut off from the walls. The way it was like an L-shaped thing,
Right.
and remember that's the old days when they had TV repairmen come and they had the crack like plumber's crack.
Oh yeah, they would come
And
out and he would plug the TV set in and
yeah,
laugh at you.
that I
Um,
well that you would laugh at him, point at his tush, but yeah, that in the old days. Has anybody? No, actually, no. We have direct TV, which is not very direct, by the way. It's indirect TV. It should be, but
Unfortunately, yeah. And, and
they actually,
and you're probably going to get sued for that. So let me give the legal disclaimer. The defamatory opinions of Steve Middleman against DirecTV are his own and not those of this podcast.
okay, very good.
Before we go further, Steve, I
Yeah,
want to do something here. I want Joey to roll in an Instagram post that we did at Angel Stadium a few weeks ago. So we're going to pause so everybody can see this post and hopefully they'll enjoy it and we can explain it. I've been coming to Anaheim Stadium for a long time, and I used to consume 5,000 calories per game. No longer. And here's the guy who gets the credit, Steve Middleman. I read his book, 500 calories tops, changed my life. And if you want to know how, check out the Substack column below here. So the backstory of the Instagram post, Steve, is
yeah,
that we went to a ball game with Billy Reback, a friend of yours, friend of mine for a long time screenwriter, television writer, and comedian, and also Christian Blatt, longtime producer for Dennis Miller. Had a great time at the Angels game, but
yeah,
at the
very
end of the
fun.
game, after reminiscing, I talked about how I used to consume like 5,000 calories, pecan, caramel, sticky buns, hot
Yeah,
dogs, beer, the whole thing.
yeah,
And I, just ballooned up quite nicely. But thanks to your book, There Is No Wagon, I was able
yeah.
to turn things around. So
Well,
why don't
uh,
we start with tell us your backstory in terms of how you added to your interests, not just stand-up comedy, but also health and weight and fitness and
well,
happiness.
I'm gonna find something in here that has to do with those sticky buns.
All right.
Okay, because I had a routine about Cinnabons.
You did. Now,
It did.
technically
It's in
speaking,
somewhere in the
Steve,
book. I have a
technically speaking, I will say the Cinnabon that we're all familiar with, including the
yes.
smell at the airport, is actually a different and distinct food item from the pecan caramel sticky bun.
Oh, it
I'm not going to
is.
make
Oh,
an
here it
argument as to
is.
which is better, but they are different.
The Cinnabon. Can I read the Cinnabon here? You mind?
Absolutely. A dramatic reading. That's great.
The sweetest world food in the world is not fruit, syrup, or honey. It's the Cinnabon. If you walk by a Cinnabon store and smell it a little too deeply, you can get a diabetic nose. Literally, your nose will be on in insulin. Within a minute of eating a Cinnabon, you have the blood sugar level of a candy store. Cotton candy looks at the Cinnabon and bows to it as a sweet on the sweet hierarchy.
That's a strong statement.
Have you ever walked by a Cinnabon shop? Their employees are like drug dealers. Want a taste? Want some bun? Got to take. Want some bun? Right? Come on, just a little taste, just a little bun. I'll throw you a little taste. It's all pure, all bun. It's all bun.
First one is free.
That's right. I actually noticed for 50 cents, they give you extra frosting. Extra frosting. Extra
No.
frosting. There's enough frosting already on a Cinnabon. That's like getting food delivered to a buffet. Could you add some lighter fluid to my flambe? It's already burning. You won't taste extra frosting. There's already a lifetime supply of frosting. There's 100-to-1 ratio of frosting to bun. How much of a glutton do you have to say these words? Yes, I'll have the extra frosting. It's like ordering ice cream a la mode. That's on top of your ice cream. It's like saying, can you make my water wetter? Okay, that's the end of the routine. Thank you. Good night.
That was professional comedy, ladies and gentlemen. And I mean that
So,
literally. He
okay,
is
so
a
to answer,
professional comedian.
so your question had something to do with the philosophy of the
Your
book.
backstory. How did you get so interested in the idea of turning things around health wise, weight wise, fitness, general happiness that you would actually put pen to paper and write a book?
So my first memory, it goes back to like when I'm 4 or 5 years old. My first memory is sitting at the kitchen table. We actually had a table in the kitchen, not a dining room table, but a table in the kitchen. The five middlemans, which was not, they weren't as funny as the seven foys, the seven little foys.
Are
Remember
you
that?
suggesting, Steve, that most families did not have a table in the kitchen? Because you know
Uh,
that's an expression. It's a pretty
yeah,
common one.
the kitchen. My favorite thing in life, almost aside from this moment, is I make believe we're opposite sides of a kitchen table and we're just chatting, which is one of my favorite things in life, really
Right.
to do. So
As long as there's meth involved.
I'm at the yeah, that's right. So I get out of my seat. I'm 4 or 5 years old. I know I have a very long night of watching the Tonight Show. 6 hours later with my
Right.
parents, although they didn't know I was watching. And I ran over to, and I was starved. I already ate dinner. I was already, you know, satiated, but I wanted more. And I knew my parents had leftovers in pans. Well, my mom was the cook. She wasn't a great cook, set up for joke right here.
Right.
When my mom made brisket, my brother and I used to fight over who got to eat the string. That's how bad of a cook she was. She made jello once, Royal. I found a bone. I'd have found a bone.
Do
It's,
do
it's
does Gen Z even know that string is involved with brisket, though, Steve?
not anymore.
Probably not.
Okay, so I go over to the kitchen to the stove, which is not a good place for a 4 or 5 year old.
No.
And start scraping whatever was left of the mashed potatoes or whatever else was in another pot. That's like my first memory.
Can't blame you. Good stuff.
It is good stuff, but I was honest. I said I was satiated. I was not satiated. I wanted more and more and more. And I've been what's called a compulsive overeater my whole life. But I was very lucky, all you kids out there that would overeat and grow this way. I just grew like a string bean till I was 18, 19. Then I went away to school and I would, get stoned or get drunk or both. And then I'd eat like crazy and I gained 50 pounds in that first
Let me
year.
get this straight. You got stoned and then you ate like crazy?
Well, things like that happen. I
Okay.
hear.
All
It's been
right,
a
if you
long.
say so.
That's funny. That's funny. So I'll tell you how much of an overeater I was. I regularly went with my friend Rob. I would eat with my parents. He'd eat with his parents. And then when we were old enough, he had the first car, out of our friends.
Right.
Then he and we would have dinner with our parents and then go for dinner again, a second dinner.
Really?
So yeah, so that's how I'm a pro at eating my whole life. So and then it gets kind of heavy because my dad had a stroke and 4 heart attacks. You know what I mean?
Yikes.
It wasn't a good stroke. It wasn't like a light stroke or a moderate stroke or easy to recover from stroke. It was a heavy duty deal.
So that's
So
probably a big motivation for you over the years
yes,
as you roll through the decades, saying to yourself, I got some of Dad's genes here, and I want to avoid that situation.
that's sort of answering your question. I definitely I didn't want to go that route. I didn't want to go that route.
Right.
So I even then in my early 20s, from about 20 to 25, I was kind of still what the Jews would call zoftic. It's a perfect word. It's a starker. I
Hmm.
was tall, always 6'4".
Jennifer Coolidge type Zoftig.
Well, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah, and she's really funny, really, really funny
She's great.
person.
Loved her in White Lotus.
Brilliant, brilliant. So she, yeah, yeah, she wanted to get back on the show. If they bring him back, they said, "Can they unkill my character somehow and bring me back?" But
Perhaps flashbacks.
that's a good, yeah, that's nice, yeah. And they have to probably shoot less if they just use stuff from her. They probably wouldn't put it past them. It's a great show.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know. I don't know if you like John Hamm's show called Your Friends and Neighbors.
I know we saw the first episode.
So
That's
here's the deal.
yeah,
This is how it relates to our little
yeah,
flashback story.
yeah,
He plays, spoiler alert, he plays a hedge fund multimillionaire who gets
yeah,
fired and becomes a cat burglar to
yeah,
make ends meet. So his dad in the show
yeah.
is the kid from Caddyshack,
Wow.
Tommy. Judge Smales was,
Yeah.
gave him the
Great,
scholarship or something like that.
great movie.
He's the dad. Okay. Now, I thought this was a little weird because they
Yeah.
looked like they should be brothers. And I think I've forgotten Michael O'Keefe is his name. I think he's like 66. John Hamm is like 54, 55. So
He
playing
does.
his dad, he'd be the
Yeah.
Doogie Howser of dads. So here's the point: they kill him off. And then he keeps coming back as John Hamm continues to do something really stupid. They show him look over to the corner of the room, and
Yeah.
there's Tommy, his dad, shaking his head
That's funny. That's
disapprovingly. So
funny.
he gets a lot more airtime, even though he's gone.
Well, you also got Vera Farmiga. You know her?
I
She's
know I've heard the name, but I
great,
can't
great,
place the
great
face.
actress. She played Norma Bates in the TV show Bates Motel. If you've never seen it, it's great. I think it's on Netflix. It's 5 seasons, and Norman is a teenager, and it's done as a contemporary. He's a contemporary psychotic serial killer.
So like
You know?
Dexter gone bad.
Yeah, and then I'm giving a little bit away, but it's not a shock. So
I
she's
gave the whole damn John Hamm show away. So fire off, fire away.
well, she in the last season, Norma is now dead, and she's there the whole season as a dead character.
Okay.
So just to tie in with John Hamm's dad, now you got mom Norma.
But we
Norma's like
but we digress. I think we were
imagine,
talking about Zoftig people.
imagine a whole season of this playing this.
Yeah.
The director goes, I think we saw you breathe. Can you not breathe?
Yeah. Just hold your breath.
Just hold
Simple.
your breath.
how
Vera,
Robert De
yeah.
Niro does it.
So the point, if you took my little stories here, being a little kid, and then eating out with my friend after I already had dinner, and then what I was like in college. So my whole life, I think there's a bit of an X factor in if you have that kind of gene that you're an eater, a
Right.
compulsive. It's. I'd like to say that emotionally, I like to call it the emotional calories. I didn't get those calories in my childhood from my parents. Never, and I love you, never a hug, none of that stuff. No wonder I became a comedian. So,
You
uh,
know, in your book, you make some poignant, fascinating comments about your parents,
yeah,
and I alluded to your stand-up comedy career. I mean, in the '80s, '90s, uh, David Letterman, Johnny Carson, all the top shows, hundreds of national TV appearances, and you commented in the book that your dad would say, "Oh yeah, your mother saw you on some spectacular appearance where you beat Eddie Murphy or Rosie O'Donnell," and your
yeah,
mom's attitude was, "Oh, I didn't really like his material." And then you're in Roxanne, a major motion
yeah,
picture with Steve Martin, and your
yeah.
parents say to you, "We're going to wait till it comes to the dollar theater." Now that
Next
must have
one.
been kind of hard on
Yeah,
your ego.
very tough. I know it. Yeah, it's not like I don't know what it is, but the odd part is, uh, they we still laughed. We still laughed. But so listen, somebody could have the most I don't know what you call it, emotionally unsatisfying childhood
Right,
and never have this issue where you're looking for a hug from an audience, uh, love out of eating food. They could just be, it's like water on a duck's back, right? Off a duck's back, the expression.
right.
So, just saying, me, obviously, I didn't have that ability to just let things roll. I think I'm better about it now in
So
life.
let's put it this way, Steve. You had an emotional desert, which led to dessert.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's going to go into the sequel right here. It's gonna, what minute are we into this thing? Because I've got to remember that. Okay. Uh,
It's hard for me to know. Time just
Dessert
flies.
and desert. I know. Uh, yeah. So the point is, yes. To answer your question from 15 minutes ago, whatever it was, I had I had the gene. The vitamin EAT. I wanted. That's
Right.
what I wanted. I
Well,
wanted
you
my
got that
emotion.
issue. You got that issue, but I mean, a lot of people have that issue, but they don't actually write a book. So, what
Yeah.
triggered the actual? Hey, I could write a book and sell it, and people would love it. Hopefully.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you, or Royal.
Okay.
Uh, well, I didn't want to sell. One of my hard lessons in life is this. Toughest lesson maybe I've learned in life. There is no wagon. You don't fall off a diet. See, once I started gaining weight, when I hit that 50 pounds in college, and I had it for numerous years, up and down, losing and gaining and losing, gaining and losing, just like people that are in a diet, almost like syndrome. Um, is the diet, people get into perfection with a diet. Like, I'm on the diet, I'm off the diet. I'm on the wagon, I'm off the wagon. I fell off, I might as well party and get my dozen Cinnabons, whatever it is. So
Getting back
that
to your
was me.
mother, if you had to explain that, I guess you'd probably say "Yo-yo, ma." Hey,
Very good.
if you want to know the time of that one, it's about 4 minutes after the other one.
Very good.
There you go.
So honestly, it's my passion that I don't think people should have to go through this cycle that I went through 50 times. And I
Right,
know they do, by the way. But I'll tell you, my mind between the ears, like the weight between the ears, the expression, the weight between the ears,
right.
you could feel like nothing, like an ounce, maybe, or you can feel like uh, a ton. So why not free yourself up and not judge yourself, love yourself through and all the bumps in the road, You don't fall off anything. Hence, and people use this expression, they could be world renowned scientists, doctors, the most brilliant people in the weight loss industry. Well, if you fall off the wagon, there is no wagon. Life just marches on. That's the point of the book. Love yourself through it and just know it just marches on. Because if I go to myself, which I did many times, screw it, toss in all the cards. The house of cards fell. What am I going to do? I might as well
Right.
party. I might as well celebrate whatever it is I want to celebrate. And it's been my lesson, so I'm sharing my lesson, but it's a passion because I don't want people to go through, you know, what I went through.
No, that's a great message, and I love the book, and I hope people buy it and
Yeah.
benefit from it. Let's
Well,
talk a little bit about the background of how we ended up doing this show, Steve. Because when we went to the Angels game,
yeah,
we talked a little about the podcast that Connor and I do, Too Many Lawyers. Now today there's only one too many lawyer. Usually there are two of us,
yeah,
but today's just the one because you're not a lawyer, correct?
yeah. But I think I made a good argument about
Yeah,
what they
oh,
were,
you did. You made a great
what,
argument.
yeah.
But here's the deal. We started talking about, hey, it'd be fun to have you on the podcast, and if we can think of a legal angle, that we can,
Oh,
although it's not technically necessary. But here's the legal angle, because we started talking about how Meta just got sued in New Mexico and in California
yeah,
for addicting children,
yeah,
being oblivious to, or they don't care about mental health problems of kids. We just want to get them scrolling from age 6, 7, 8 for a lifetime and end up with
yeah.
body image issues and suicidal ideation and depression and anxiety and so on. And
And
you and
what
I
are the
started
deaths?
talking about
Yeah.
whether there is an analogy to food. And here I'm going to quote your line here, and you can explain to our vast listening and viewing audience. You said, "Nothing should be sold that harms anybody ever." And I was a little skeptical of that because I know there are a bunch of libertarians out there. They're going to come after you
Yeah.
with pitchforks and torches and say, Steve, if I want to buy a Snickers bar and if I want to eat nothing but Doritos, are you
Yeah.
telling me I shouldn't be able to buy them? Are you telling me that the snack food, big snack, shouldn't be able to sell? So, how far would you go in having the Steve Middleman approach to healthy
Yeah.
living actually translated to legislation?
Wow. I don't know how to translate it to, I'll start with the ending. I don't
Right.
know how to translate it to legislation, but if there's 8 billion people on the planet and counting, as I said, the words and counting, it's counting. Nobody should be, look at life like this. We're miracles that we're here. It's an amazing gift. Should people be, if you take this miracle that we're experiencing this very second, should people reap financial gain, unabashed financial gain, to suck out some of that miracle from another human being's life? I'm a
Right.
humanist. Bottom line, I'm a humanist. I don't think anything should be sold anywhere at any time, not to begrudge anybody. The cigarette industry, they were found out.
Right.
Doctors were paid to do cigarette commercials in the 50s and 40s or whatever. And, they were found out. You know what they did? They put their money into fast food and processed food and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and something, if but based on the rate of obesity, heart disease, what's called food-borne cancers, which are born out of what you eat. So there's, I don't know, a dozen of those. Uh, Colorectal, breast cancer, the biggest probably. And
Oh,
should
absolutely. I
they?
mean, no doubt about the health connection. Now,
Yeah,
and the argument for, say, taking tax dollars to educate people is great. The argument for forcing tobacco and alcohol sellers to put warnings is strong. But how do you solve the problem of the fact that we went through prohibition, and the
yeah,
real thing that came out of it is that Al Capone was born.
yeah,
I mean, do you? And we'll talk in a minute about how cigarette smoking is going away or becoming illegal. But
yeah, oh
do
yeah.
you think that we actually should flirt with the notion of banning, for example, alcoholic beverages and tobacco products?
I will answer it with an answer behind the answer.
Okay.
Okay. And that is certain people know they're addicted and seek stopping, whether it's 12-step programs or like, or, or clinics or going away for a month for 30 grand or whatever it is. You can't tell people to stop something they don't want to stop because but there are layers of addiction that I would call a defense mechanism where you go, don't tell me what to do. You could say the most brilliant lawyer in the world that's got 100 pounds to lose, but believes in everybody's right to avail themselves of the worst crap that is really destroying, maybe will go, I don't know, 20, 30, 40% of the world population, right?
Right.
They could be the most brilliant that I can't compete with. But if you look at the facts, the numbers, it's endless. It's only getting worse. As we're talking about it, somebody has died, but their denial is so sharp that even though this lawyer that has 100 pounds to lose, he's coming from his own sense of attachment to processed foods.
Right.
So that's the wall that you have to break through. Because the most
Yeah.
brilliant, like I was saying before, the most brilliant people in the world have a defense about this. That they go, oh, no, it's not our right. I think the planet, uh, like your joke about desert and dessert, right? The planet gives us plants to eat, not just sustain ourselves, but to allow us to live. Let's say in my genes, my dad died at 70. I'm 70 right now. But my aunts, one was in her high 80s, one was in her 90s. I don't know if my dad's lifestyle took 20 years away from him. I can't tell. I'm not brilliant when it comes to DNA or genes or any of that stuff. But I will say that quality of life, I can't say Royal Oaks is going to be living to 95. I hope you are. But quality of life. My dad had a stroke and 4 heart attacks and died on his fourth heart attack. Maybe, if he had that stroke at 59, I think it was, and then he had those big, and he was inoperable at the time, people were actually inoperable. Maybe, just maybe, he would have had 11 years of a level of quality of life that would have been, like
Oh,
an amazing
absolutely.
thing.
There's no denying that. And
Yeah,
the libertarian argument that I brought up, obviously it's an ongoing debate, from
yeah,
decade to decade, century to century. It's interesting to me now that we may be entering a period where there's a lot of pressure to toss aside that libertarian view in a couple of respects. First, I mentioned the slamming of Meta, $349 million jury verdict in New Mexico
yeah,
just a few weeks ago because
yeah,
they concluded that Meta is just ignoring the mental health of kids. The next
yeah,
day there was a $6 million verdict for the plaintiffs in Los Angeles. Then now let's turn to smoking. You probably followed this, Steve. In some countries, I'm not sure if it's Australia or which ones, but some countries and some areas in the U.S. are toying with the idea of saying, okay, if you are 18 or under, or if you're under 18, you may not buy cigarettes. And so, for example, if you were born in 2008,
yeah.
you may not buy cigarettes now because you're 18 or you're just under 18. And here's the catch: you may never buy cigarettes if you were born in 2008. So that in 10 years, when you're 28, you may not buy cigarettes. In 20 years, when you're 38,
Oh,
when you're 108, you still may not buy cigarettes. And people
yeah,
say, are you crazy? And the answer is, no, we're not crazy. We're serious. We're doing it. So we may be sliding toward that. Let's take a quick pause, remind everybody we're talking with stand up comedian Steve Mittleman, author of, here it is, There Is No Wagon. I hope it's not
yeah.
backwards on my screen. We're going to pause and be right back on Too Many Lawyers. Stick with us. We're back. This is Too Many Lawyers. I'm Royal Oakes. Our guest is Steve Mittleman, author of There Is No Wagon. We're talking about health and weight and fitness and general happiness. And Steve, so we haven't really explored the sort of the underlying cause of why some people eat what they eat and how much. You got some theories on that?
Well, yeah, I I believe that people are one, they're raised. There's so much. It seems like every day some kind of special occasion is going on. Whether it's
Is that a bad thing, Steve?
yeah, no, but but that party that people have been attending, whether it's somebody in the office is having a baby and going away for 6 weeks or 3 months to raise their newborn, or somebody's anniversary. I did when I started in comedy. I did temp jobs, and I was at this place for a week, and every day somebody brought in a cake. There's somebody in the
Every
office
day?
every day. I was like blown away. If it's not that we're celebrating at the office, people are celebrating at home for whatever it is,
We come up with
whatever.
lots of excuses to consume unhealthy stuff.
Well, because it's becomes a norm. I think if it was a once a month or twice a month, uh, what's the big deal, But it turned out that in society, we have ballooned individually and as you could runs in families. They say that certain diseases, they go, well, is heart disease uh, genetic, or does it run in the family, or maybe the families eat like crap for 3 generations. So you can say, oh, my grandfather died of type 2 diabetes. My father died of, whatever, heart disease. I have my heart or whatever issues, right? So you go, hey, maybe it's foodborne for generations. So I was born in 55. So for 71 years now, and the launching of all the fast food restaurants, and then there's not quite the fast food like the Applebee's or whatever. They're not quite like McDonald's, but there's chains and people endlessly. And you don't think as a comedian I partaked forever, traveling the road for 30 years.
Sure.
And it's very hard. But I have been to endless, Whole Foods and getting, salads for $23 for or whatever it costs. But I've changed and tweaked my
Yeah, no, people
celebration.
people get into the routine. I will say that people
Yeah,
assume, Steve, that
yeah,
stand-up comedians uh, drink alcohol,
yeah,
consume cheeseburgers and junk food,
yeah.
stay up all night, and by
Used
the
to.
way, without being too specific, Wilt Chamberlain claimed in his 1991 autobiography that he slept with 20,000 women.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that people suspect that comedians engaged in sort of a similar lifestyle. Would you be able to
Well,
comment on some of what your colleagues were up to back in the day?
yeah. I mean, especially my
And
stand-up
please name
comedians
names.
that were also basketball players. The combo was unbelievable. Uh, but I don't think there's one actually. But point is, all back to the celebration.
Yes.
Um, that's a whole other book, by the way. The 20,000. It was like one page in his book, I think. There's another book called The Pleasure Trap, and it's all about addiction to they promote plant-based being best kind of way to eat,
Right.
and also that people are basically addicted to processed foods and a lot of sugar, oil, salt. And there's expression SOS free, sugar, oil, salt free. Now, you guys do what you want out there, of course, but no doubt they're addicted things. They're addictive things, sugar, oil, salt. And we've overdone them, and fried foods and like I said, processed foods. So they're so a part of our lifestyle and our way to how we're living nowadays that I don't think people either hit a red flag and they bottom out like there's a severe heart problem, or like, oh, you're gonna have to get your leg cut off, or from diabetes or whatever it is, that they hit a wall and they go, oh my God. And even then, some people still party. I
Well, I would
just,
think, Steve, that the fitness craze,
yeah,
the focus on fitness has to be a good thing, because when you see people running, jogging along the street, when you walk by the 24-hour fitness and they're in there jogging, I would think that people who have embraced that are probably more likely to turn their back on at least crazy overdoing of the processed foods, because they have to know that they're just wiping out all the good stuff that they're accomplishing. All the sweat and blood, sweat, and tears and hours they put in on the treadmill or whatever is kind of canceled out. So, I mean, back in the day, I don't remember, there weren't any of these fitness places. I don't remember people jogging along the street. So, isn't that kind of a positive sign?
of course it is, yes. But I think it's, if you look at the track of how people were, the cancer and the heart disease and they say we may be the first generation right now that is outliving the longevity of our kids. We may live older if right now, and they say, oh, it's 78, 79 average, life expectancy. And our kids are not going to make our
Yeah,
average, even though with all the
rounding
medical
down.
breakthroughs. So you can't, given all the great habits that people are hopefully establishing. I've always been good at working out. So, but yeah, I think you are what you eat and you are what you don't eat. You know, yes, it's a plus. I feel better. I walked an hour today. I stretched at the gym. My back really hurts. I got like a knot in my back. So all I did was hang a bit from the chin up bar, which I can't do a chin up anyway. So that's what I hang. I hang there. Uh, anyway, so, um, but I walked an hour, you know, I walked an hour. I cover up. I mean, we're in the desert here, or the desert, and the sun. I cover up really well, but I do it
You
early
got to do that.
when
Um,
the sun's not at worst.
I want to shift gears because a lot of
Yeah,
people have followed you over the years. You've had a fantastic long term comedy career, and having read your book, I know a little bit about the background. You went to college, University of Buffalo. You auditioned at Catch a Rising Star, the famous comedy club in New York City. You won a laugh off in 1980 against Eddie Murphy.
yeah,
Moved
that was
out to
good.
L.A. in '85. Auditioned 10 times before you got on to the Johnny Carson show, kind of the holy grail for stand-up comics.
Yes,
Tell us what it was like going through that process of auditioning and having Jim McCauley or whoever the
yeah.
decider was going to the comedy clubs. No, 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 and then finally breaking through and getting on. Tell us
Well,
about that process.
that was a dream. First of all, it happened like that. And when I beat Eddie Murphy in the laugh off on Showtime, it was like launch me. I went from hardly ever working to, you're a headliner, you're headlining. It's like,
Nice.
so you have to, yes, but you're going from, well, I have a good 15 minutes of material to now I got to do 45 plus. That is like, you better get one of the great things that Seinfeld did is he retired his act on Broadway, did like a Broadway show. It was, I know, the last time I'm doing it, I forget what he called it, but it forced him to write up a whole new act. And then he did a special about the process of going from zero to a whole new act.
Hmm.
And Jackie Mason did that too. He had like a 25-year run with his like greatest hits, like an hour 40 of material. And then he had a hit Broadway show and he traveled the country with it. I saw him twice, New York and LA. And he was an old friend of mine. So, point is, I had to go from 15, 20 minutes of material to like 45 and beyond
And
from
is that
winning these
just a
things.
matter of holding up and sitting down and writing
It's a lot of,
road testing it in small clubs until you
yeah,
come up with something that you think is Tonight Show worthy?
100%. That's what it is. I was a clean comic. I'm a clean comedian. So when I won the laugh off, all of a sudden, yes, I had to get a whole bunch of new material. But they flew us out to LA. My friend Mark Schiff and I, he came in second. It was like there were five comics. And we auditioned for the Tonight Show. This was like 1980. So I went like 4 years into comedy. I'm auditioning for the Tonight Show.
And
But you have
auditioning means going to the world famous Comedy Store when somebody from the show is there. It's not that you go down to
yeah,
NBC and
no, this
audition,
is
right?
I had a great agent at ICM, which is a big agency, and they flew us out, and then we met a whole bunch of mucky mucks in the biz. And this was at the Improv audition. I wasn't ready for it, I don't think. But that was the first time I didn't get it. But up until about 1988, I probably once or every year or every 8 months or whatever, Macaulay, we would set up an audition, or the agent would, or my manager at the time would, and he'd go, "I don't think you're Johnny's kind of comedian," which was counter to every show I did. When you do comedy clubs, you're doing 6, 7, 8 shows in a week. You're going to Charlotte, and at a club, the Ha Ha Room or whatever it was, and after the show, I would talk to the audience. They go, "You do Johnny?" That's how they would say it. "You do Johnny?" Very optimistic, like, "You do
Right.
Johnny?" And I go, "No." And they go, "You're Johnny's kind of comedian." This is what I would get. "You're Johnny's kind of comedian." And then I'd audition for the Tonight Show after all those shows where people are just telling me, "You do Johnny? You're Johnny's kind of comedian." And Macaulay would be going, "I don't think you're Johnny's kind of comedian." In my head, I'm going, what about the legions of people out
Right.
there that
So
are telling
what
me?
flipped the switch? At some point, according to somebody, you were and you
I,
got on.
I think he caved eventually after like 8, 9, 10 auditions.
You wore him
And
down.
so then, yeah, I think I did. Because I don't think I was that much funnier after a certain point. I hit a level, and so I do the show and I kill. I did my chin material about having a weak chin. That was
Right.
my biggest. Now I do have a chin, but my big joke was, the worst thing about having a weak chin. It used to take me 3 to 4 hours to change a pillowcase.
I like it.
Yeah. Anyway, and I had a bunch of chin jokes. I used to play the violin. I had to shove it in my mouth. I tried committing suicide once. The noose kept slipping off my face. I was hanging by my nose. I still had breathing room. Great stuff. So I killed, and I got this, from Johnny, the okay sign.
Oh, nice.
And then he goes, after 10 years of auditioning for the Tonight Show, Macaulay goes, "You got to meet Johnny." Now I'm his like protege. I'm his best friend. He discovers me, right? Macaulay. And he knows exactly where Johnny walks after the show. And he introduces us. He goes, "Johnny Carson, Steve Mittleman." And we shake hands, and he looks me in the eye and he goes, "You are my kind of comedian."
I love it.
It was a great ending to that,
And I'm
you
sure
know.
Macaulay was just
Oh,
beaming, taking credit.
yeah. Think about the 4-year-old. I didn't know what it was. I know he was standing there in front of people making him laugh. I was in the hallway watching, right? And I go, that's like 25 years later, a payoff,
Yeah. So
or more.
compare for us the process of getting on to Letterman show
Yeah.
with the process of getting on. What was that experience like? And then actually being on Letterman, is it
Yeah.
different in any way from being on the Tonight
Well,
Show?
I'll tell you what, a really nice thing. They asked me to be on the show. It was like, no, I didn't audition. I mean, it was
Nice.
like, "Hey, we want you on the show." And I did something really neat that I told them I was going to do ahead of time, but I started a story about my sister in my stand up.
Right.
And then I did panel with Letterman,
Hmm.
right? And then he asked me a question and I answered the question. And then I go, "Oh," and I went back to the routine is about playing Scrabble with my sister. And, like when you're playing Scrabble, it's like, people cheat and they make up words. I put a word like zucca, zucca, zucca.
Right.
It's a word. Go ahead, look it up. It's a word. Look it up. You know how the people do that? It's a word. Look it up. Look it up. And my sister puts down plurtnip, and I go, "Plurtnip? What do you mean plurtnip?" "Look it up." So I called her bluff. I looked it up. It's a plurtnip, word only used in Scrabble. and it was written in
Great
crayon.
opportunity to embarrass your sister on national television.
So I did stand up, and I resolved it on the panel, which was I'd never seen that before.
I'm interested in your impressions of comedy in the '90s and all the tumult and the drama and so on. First of all, in terms of Gary Shandling and Larry Sanders Show,
Loved it.
I love the show. I don't know what your opinion of it was. It just seemed
Loved
like
it.
such an amazing send up of the real thing.
Everything. I think he was, parroting what he knew. He was very successful,
Right.
really funny, nice guy. He gave me a tag years ago. Comics Watch, you know what a tag is, a joke on a joke
Hmm.
for everybody out there. It's a punchline that tops the previous punchline. So Mark Schiff gave me this joke years ago. It's going to be an old reference for people, but um, I didn't get much sexual advice growing up. But when I was 13 years old, my parents took me to a Liberace concert, and my father said that's what happens when you masturbate. So Gary Shandling, after he gives me in the kitchen at the Comedy Store, he goes, "I have a tag for you." After that's what happens when you masturbate.
Yeah.
And by the tag he gave me, which I used for a while, I'm not doing that joke forever, but this is when you're 14. He says, by the time I was 14, I had a candelabra at the end of my bed.
I love
The
it.
guy was a genius, and he was parodying everything. Like I said before, everything he knew. You know, once saw Alan Zweibel, who was the co-creator with him of that, right? And he said, break all rules. The one rule is to break all rules.
Alan Zweibel is so great. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen the new documentary about Lauren Michaels that was in the theaters for a
No,
while,
didn't see
and
it.
now, you have
Yeah,
seen it.
I haven't seen it. No.
It's great. I saw it just the other night, and Alan Zweibel has a lot of good quotes in it. I want to go back to something you were referring to, writing and coming up with a new act. What happened to the Bob Hopes, the George Burnses, the Jack Bennys of the world? My guess is that although they may have been, and Sid Caesar may have been active in the writers' room, basically other people were writing for them. When did it change that you had to write your own stuff? Is it just because they were network stars and they could afford to hire writers? How
I,
come Jerry Seinfeld and Richard Pryor and you and everybody else in the '80s, '90s, 2000s have to write their own stuff?
I'll tell you because it was a different business that time. It was a much more innocent time, as you can imagine. But what they had is they came from vaudeville, which they probably wrote their own acts in vaudeville,
Mhm.
or they bought material from people that they were probably material is sold to like 20 other comics, not unbeknownst to the comic. But uh, when they got to the level of where they had their own radio show, and then like Jack Benny, then that's too much volume to have to write every week.
Right. Yeah. Every week.
Even Seinfeld had Larry David. He was writing the show and having to memorize it and tape it. And he admits he wasn't the greatest actor in the world, but that grew over the years for Jerry. But yeah, so the answer is nobody could keep up with the amount of the demand of Jerry's the closest to
Well,
do that.
interesting hybrid. If you think about Saturday Night Live, we all know from reading books and articles about it
Yeah,
that you get on as an actor, not as a writer, but as an actor,
yeah,
and you're expected to write as well. And if you want to get in a sketch, you better
yeah,
darn well write yourself. Now, when you become Eddie Murphy, of course, then other people write for you. But I mean, I think I remember reading that Martin Short just felt like the pressure. He was only there the 1 year. The pressure was incredible to every single week come up with something that could
yeah,
get you in front of the camera. I mean,
yeah,
again, I compare it to the '50s when you've got these stars who didn't have to write anything, even
yeah.
into today. I guess that's the culture at SNL.
From what I know, old friend of mine wrote. remember the monkey character? I forget the guy's name, but Hugh Fink was a writer. He was a comic and he became a writer on SNL. And he wrote a bunch of those sketches with the guy that did this monkey character. And I forget his name. It's a long time
Yeah, I
ago.
don't remember either.
But it's almost like they assigned a writer to the artist and they got to powwow and you could bounce it off somebody and you can noodle together and like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And they're endlessly pitching things to each other and it kind of fills the space needed to fill a sketch. I don't know what a sketch is, like 6 minutes or whatever it is. I think though that's easier than figuring out an ending to a sketch. This usually things don't resolve too well on SNL, but
Well,
I
to
think the people that have these characters, they know what they're doing, and the people that are attached to them or paired up with them, they have a good idea of what's going to work. So they have a buddy for the creative, wizardry that the creativity.
that whole process is so alien to me, and maybe
Yeah,
it's my personality, maybe it's just because I was a lawyer for many years. But our friend Billy Reback, of course, I've heard him tell
brilliant.
stories about being in the writers' room, and
He's
he,
brilliant, Billy. Yeah,
amazing, an incredible sense of humor. And so back in Home Improvement, he's
yeah,
basically the head writer for Home Improvement. And he's in the
yeah,
writers' room, and I'm talking to him, and I'm hearing these stories. I'm thinking to myself, if I had to be in a room with other carbon units, other human beings, where we're
yeah,
in a creative process, it would be a complete nightmare. I can't write anything. I can't even have music on in the background. It's got to be me and the
yeah.
keyboard, and that's it.
Yeah.
There must be something different about the personalities of people who write collaboratively. I mean, are you a solo writer, or did you
Well,
ever enjoy the process of doing it with others?
I like so in my phone here, I think I showed you, I have thousands upon thousands of little
Megapixels?
pieces of what I want. Funny, um, of what I want to do that are going to end up in something like this. And today I wrote something just today. I don't know if I'm going to lose you by. No, I don't want to go on here. But the gist of what I wrote today, it's very solo. It's just me
Hmm.
and quiet, and usually in the morning. And I like to write then. With comedy, if something hits me, I will. I'll be happy to. I don't care if 24/7, whatever time of day it is, 2 a.m., 9 a.m., 2 p.m. Doesn't matter. I'm jotting it down. These things for the books, I probably have enough for 20 of these books.
Wow.
Literally. Well, you
So
have to spend. Yeah,
So I'm going to stop making 1950s references. It reminds me, I watched a Norm Macdonald show. You remember after he left SNL, he had a few different shows, and he
funny guy.
interviewed people,
Yeah,
and he had Lorne Michaels on once, and so he's asking Lorne all about, oh, George Carlin hosted the first SNL in
yeah,
1975, and the original cast, Dan Aykroyd, and so it goes on for like 20, 30 minutes, and finally Lorne Michaels says, can we leave the 1970s, please? So now we'll go into the 90s. I want your take,
yeah,
Steve Mittleman, the
yeah,
premier stand-up comedian and author of There Is No Wagon. What did you think of the whole drama that Bill Carter wrote about in the Late Shift, I think, about Leno and Letterman, and Leno hiding in a closet, listening on the
yeah,
phone extension about the NBC people debating? I'll give you my take quickly, but I'm
yeah,
interested in yours. It's more educated. My take is, if you are going to spit in the eye of the guy who signs your check, even
yeah.
though he deserves to be spit in the eye, shouldn't you expect some, shiv in the gut down the road? What's your take on
Oh,
Letterman versus
well, I
Leno?
mean, so who the spinner was Leno for
No, my
hiding in the
my
closet?
impression was David Letterman was the spitter, and I'll never forget this. General Electric, buys NBC or some
Yeah,
corporate takeover. And for a nice gag, Letterman shows up at 30 Rock, the NBC headquarters in Manhattan, with a
yeah,
giant fruit basket. and this officious, cranky, prune-faced security guard head says you can't go up to, Jack Welch's, CEO palace on the 99th floor
Yeah.
with that. Get out of here. All the while, the cameras are lovingly recording this moron putting the worst possible face on a corporation. And Letterman was, getting some great comedy out of it, but
Yeah.
obviously hated the fact that these bastards, these corporate people, have no sense of humor. And so my opinion is that
Yeah.
he was antagonistic toward the people who signed his check, and at some point it's payback time so that he doesn't get the Tonight Show. Now, am I off base? What do you think?
What do I think? I think Jay wanted the Tonight Show more than Letterman did.
Well, I
Like,
did too. I did too, Steve, but that
yeah,
didn't help me.
that's funny. I think he would have been great actually doing that. Well, lovable. You're even more lovable than those guys,
Oh, thank you.
right? So, um, Jay, I'm not quite answering your question, but Jay so wanted it. He was already out here. I don't know if that makes a difference really, but out in, LA area.
Right.
And he just was more competitive, maybe. The chips were going to fall how they fell, whether Jay was in a closet, in a boardroom, at NBC, out here.
So you're saying he was gay?
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Not
probably.
for what I've heard. So Letterman, I think everything worked out perfectly for both of them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Letterman was perfect on CBS.
kind of like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Unpleasant split after 10
Yeah,
years as partners. They
yeah,
had amazing, wonderful solo careers.
yeah,
Let me move deeper into the '90s and ask you this because it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I had been doing legal analysis earlier than OJ, with the Menendez brothers murders
yeah,
and Rodney King and a few others, but OJ was, of course, the
yeah,
the granddaddy of them all. And so I was really, because I love comedy and also was super interested in the OJ thing. I noticed that Letterman starts out beating Leno after Letterman gets the big CBS show. But the thing that turned it around for Leno, and he never looked
yeah,
back, is
yeah.
that when the OJ murders hit, Leno went to town and he had the dancing Itos. He hired
Right.
six Asian dancers about the height
Yeah,
of Lance Ito, and
yeah.
Marcia Clark pops up among them and took off. Letterman's attitude was, "What's funny about a double murder?" And he had some jokes
Great,
about how society
great.
was reacting in the media
Yeah.
coverage. What's your take on that whole dynamic? Was it your sense that that was sort of a key thing that allowed Leno to rise and
It,
get ahead of Letterman in the
it
ratings?
was. It absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think Letterman likes to look at the dark side, in his personality
Mhm.
and the snarky side. I mean, they both have some of that quality. As you're telling me, it's reminding me that uh, I knew a Marcia Clark lookalike. Uh,
Yeah.
the guy, by the way, the guy that was the dancing Ito, one of them was, he was like a Ito lookalike, and I knew like two or three lookalikes of these people.
That's funny.
While I was living in Santa Monica and obsessed with it at the time. But what it says is that comedians, each one has their own point of view.
Hmm.
But aside from Hugh Grant coming out and admitting what he did when he did,
What the hell
and
were you thinking?
yeah, that was the big line, right? Yeah, and the Dancing Itos. I don't know what Jay did. I thought Letterman had a far better show. Was a much better monologist when it came opening monologue.
Hmm.
He did like a tight, 12 jokes or whatever it was, and then commercial break, and then he was off to a desk piece.
Yeah.
And Jay just had to just have all this. I didn't hardly watch his show because I thought he went way too long on his monologues. He mugged a lot. He stepped on his laughs a lot. He get laughs, but he went to the lowbrow and maybe Letterman just didn't want. He didn't go lowbrow.
Yeah, I
Let-
have to give Jay credit for in a one personal situation where I saw him not on TV but live. I'll tell you the quick story. Um, Tom Girardi, the disgraced lawyer, threw a huge Super Bowl party, and it was black tie,
Yeah.
and it was about
Weird.
60, 70 guys. They're all white males in tuxedos, okay? That's the audience. I'm in this audience,
Yeah.
and Tom has hired Jay to come do his 30, 40-minute act.
Yeah.
Jay Leno comes out, looks at this sea of people, again, all white male tuxedos, and he says, "Gee, I'm glad the diversity program kicked in." Now,
Great.
I always wondered, did he
Big
come up
left.
with that on the spur of the moment, or was it sort of planned?
I
Whether, however it happened, I got
yeah,
to give him credit for that joke.
my guess is he did. My guess is he did. I did something in Sarasota, Florida. It was there were like 1,000, 1,200 from I don't know which hardware store company it was, but they were like,
We'll call it Ace.
okay, we'll call it Ace. It was a great gig, and there were 3 or 4 people that were African Americans in the audience. And I came out and I did like 2 minutes on, I'm like the blackest guy here. That was my premise, right?
Really?
I'm the,
Okay.
you know, uh, you
And
know,
were you
uh,
aware when you uttered that line that there were some African Americans in the audience?
3. There were 3 out of a
But you
thousand.
knew that.
Oh yeah, I'm watching.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I had humongous laughs like right out of the gate. I
Right.
go, I can't believe I didn't say diversity, but I said, but I can't believe I'm like the blackest guy here. I'm like my main man,
Yeah.
like okay. And I'm telling you, I did great. I had a great show. Because also you kick them off once you start laughing, then you got the floodgates happen. You've got all your material to go to, right?
Right.
They've already there's a like once they're laughing, there's a you hit the level of I like this guy, and I'm going to give him my heart and my mind, and I'm going to have fun with him.
Yeah.
And immediately, but I'll tell you, I got a letter and a call from the agent going, we didn't like that he went there.
Ooh, I thought you were going to say from the NAACP.
No,
No.
no, just we didn't like that he went there. And I'm the least controversial, but I just looked at my audience. This is why I think Jay just went diversity. It was like perfect.
Yeah.
And he was a great stand up. He is a great stand up. But I think Letterman can't do what Jay does. Jay can't do what Letterman does.
Right.
And so they each had a space.
I've heard some comics say that Jay didn't give comics an opportunity, young
He
comedians, the
didn't.
way
Oh,
Carson
it's
did.
awful. I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think I was one of them actually. So yeah, there was a time I was auditioning. There was an improv in Santa Monica for I don't know a couple of years, and everybody was bombing. Everybody and Jimmy Brogan, who was the Macaulay of his time,
Hmm.
he worked for Jay. I ran 2 sets by Jay the night that by Jimmy the night everybody's bombing, and I had like a solid 10, 11, 12 minutes of laughs. And then he ran it by the people, the powers that be, and he just could not get me through, let's get Steve on the show.
Yeah.
It was like too bad. I
What
did
did
a
you think?
sketch.
What did you think of the whole Conan O'Brien deal? And do you think, in retrospect, maybe Conan, obviously a tremendous career before and after, but do you think he should have said, "Okay, I'll take midnight," because that was sort of the key. They offered to
Yes.
let him stay if he moved to midnight.
10 o'clock doesn't feel right for comedy. I don't know why. It just doesn't.
Hmm.
Um, we weren't raised on 10 o'clock. We were raised on 11:30. So that was a bad move, I think, by NBC. They were kind of their networks are going to think in terms of gluttony, finance, money, when it's coming in. We want money and ratings, and you know, and they were just trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. Conan is funny. He's another big mugger, or he used to be a really big. He over mugs. He doesn't have to. He's a funny guy, really funny guy, and sharp guy.
I read that they want him back for yet another year hosting the Oscars.
Oh, good. It was fun. The Oscars were fun, and you can't overdo it. You can't overkill. When you have a joke, you don't have to. It's like either you're insecure about the joke because it's a new joke, or you're insecure about the audience because they're not going to get it unless I overdo it, folks. Hey, let's be wacky. And he's just a naturally funny guy. You don't need to do that.
So let's move to the last element of my late night obsession, and it's the current stuff. What do you think of the whole business of Colbert being eased out?
Uh,
People are talking about how it's kind of the death of late night. Do you think we're actually seeing a huge sea change, and it's not
well,
in a few years won't be around?
we're big fans. I'll answer the last question. I hope not. I think it's needed. I think okay, if I'm getting a little political. You have Trump, but you have all the right wing and media, whatever you want to call it, right wing media, that enable this machine and this brand to happen. He looks at himself as a brand. He's playing the role of a comedian, of a president, but he is actually a president who wants to be a comedian, well, big president. But he is a brand, and you're looking at another brand that they're so intertwined, the right wing media, in enabling the existence of Trump. And there's money to be made and endless. Look, no, listen, they got a 700, $800 million deal where they were played into lying about the election results, right? They knew it was a lie. It's like, hey, you want another $12 billion? We'll give it to you.
Right.
They're making that much money. So, so that's an element of it, and that element also, they want everything lockstep with their philosophy. If Trump was a Democrat and did everything he did as a Democrat, Fox would be like we're the new liberal Democratic channel.
Mm.
As money is to be made, everybody's enabling everybody else, and it's a giant money trail. And he wants to eliminate everything that gets in his way. He wants to be a train. He wants to be the conductor. He wants to drive it through, and everything should fit within his bounds of security. He wants security out of the way, insecurity out of the way. I want my train. That's it. I don't want to think about anybody else. You don't deserve to have a voice that is different than what I am
And in
or
terms
what I represent.
of Colbert, I think there's an interesting irony. From
Yeah,
what I understand, I really loved Colbert from the start. I mean, I watched for the first several months. I watched every single episode. For one, I've had a little bit of a connection because a good buddy of mine is his nephew, and so I got
it's
tickets to
great.
see him when he did the show where he was the right wing
Yeah, yeah. I never saw the
Gladiator,
show.
and then
Yeah,
he got his tickets to see the CBS show. So I was totally focused on it. And then I noticed reading about it that he almost lost his job because it just wasn't coming together and the ratings weren't that great. And then the Trump campaign, he was
yeah,
able to get, and suddenly, boom, he leapfrogs. He's now number one in the ratings and had a spectacular run. So Trump, in that sense, made him, I mean, actually saved his job. And if you believe the allegations that it's all of the Trump pressure, the administration's pressure with all these, uh,
yeah.
mergers and acquisitions, and the CBS saying, "Oh, well, we're
Well,
losing
that's
30,
true.
30 million a year." So Trump is responsible. He's sort of bookended in both the halves of his late night
Yeah.
career.
But if you're,
Let me ask you
yeah,
one thing uh, about late night and SNL. Some people say, you know what? Maybe it's just because we're a little older, but who watches from 11:30 to 12:30, much less 11:30 to 1? And instead, you people do enjoy the best sketches because they go on the internet the next morning. Do you think that is going to lead to the death maybe not only of late night, but also of Saturday Night Live?
Well, the internet is another 1,000 channels. You
Right,
know, we used
right.
to have, you know, 6 channels or whatever, and growing up in New York, 2, 4, 7, 5, 9, 11. Right? Basically, that was it.
Yep.
And there was a little UHF and a little VH, whatever F, and now you got endless competition. And but you can watch, at least here where we are, you can watch SNL at 8:30, and it's not as bad if you want to watch it in time. We tape everything we watch, and we speed through commercials,
Mhm.
and that's
Do you
it
really
makes
think
life.
that's fair to those fine advertisers?
Hey, listen, I'm very lucky because I did 50 or more commercials and over a span of like 20 years.
Cool.
So, I'm very fortunate because that was a chunk of change. If I didn't feel like traveling as much, I had money coming in from all the commercials and other acting work. And so I was very lucky for somebody that, like, okay, if I work as an actor, but I worked for over 20 years as an actor. Miracle. And I was a character, and I was very lucky. So looking back now, I wish I wouldn't have done some of those commercials. I mean, like really, like fast food stuff and Roundup and American uh, uh, Beef
Hey,
Association.
maybe you'll be a defendant in a
I know,
multi-million
I
dollar
know.
lawsuit.
I did everything that you think would be really like, oh, you're really against that now. But yeah, back then I was like, I had to make a living, and I had a son and a wife, and you got to make money. So I didn't know I was selling myself out at the time.
Well, Steve,
So
I really
yeah,
appreciate you being so generous
yeah.
with your time. It's been
Oh,
a delight to talk to you. Let's remind everybody
well,
it's called There Is No Wagon by
there is
Steve
no wagon.
Millman.
There is
Check it
no wagon.
out.
Thank you
Available.
very much for inviting me to
Oh my
do
gosh,
this,
it was
Royal,
it was a
and for the
pleasure.
Met game. Our Met.
And when the lawsuits against all unhealthy foods percolate through the legal system, we'll have you back and see how they're progressing.
Well, I'm not holding my breath on the lawsuits, but actually, no. There have been some things along the way. I
I'll
bet.
say this: if you do hold your breath on those lawsuits, you won't be around to see how they work out.
I
I
know.
read somebody the record is like 15 minutes. Can you imagine holding your breath for 15 minutes?
Is that
I
for
could
real?
I could see 7 or 8, Steve, but
I
15.
I can't see 70 seconds, 80 seconds, you know?
All right.
So,
Well,
well, thank
this
you
has
very
been
much.
this has
Great
been
to
too
see
many
you
words. Thank you, Steve, and
as
thank you.
always, Royal, as always.
Oh my gosh, it
Thank
was
you.
so
Great to
much
see you.
fun, and
Yeah.
I love that Instagram post that we played at the
Oh,
top of the show.
yeah. Oh, good.
Let's just
Glad.
hope let's hope the Angels can turn it around after a decade of sub 500 performances.
Next time, I don't know when they're back, but next time, keep me in mind. Love to go. Whatever
Ab-
you can do.
Absolutely, Steve.
Yeah.
Great
Thank you.
chatting. We'll
That's
see
fun. Thank
everybody
you very
next
much,
time.
Royal. Hi. Bye, everybody.
Take care.